Happy Friday. I had a little panic moment where I thought, oh no, am I streaming to the right place? But I think I am. Bandita is on the move. I don't know where she's going. We're on the live Bandita tracker. Ah, she's fallen. She's fallen for my puppy trap. I know exactly what she likes. I know it. I knew that she was gonna start making a little blanket mountain. I knew it. Okay. Hello, everyone. How are we doing? What is going on? It is Friday. We did not stream last week because last week was very strange. Just the usual reason why people don't stream, which is had to deal with a very weird part of the internet that seemed like it was the same part of Twitter I normally see in a secondhand way. Like the part that's all like constantly talking about how women can't do BDSM because it's perpetuating the patriarchy, and just 80 bajillion comments about that. So we are not dealing with that today, hopefully, but we have our mods here in case that does happen. But I hope you all are doing well. We do have memberships again if you would like to use some of the wonderful emotes that we have available here. We have so many fun ones, and they're very cute, and that's basically what you need to know. Looks like we got a lot of new people here in the chat, which is fantastic. We love seeing all of the new people. First time live. Welcome, welcome. Glad that you could make it. What is... Oh, it was the other Kink Fest. The other Kink Fest. Hope that went well. How did it go? I've not been to the other Kink Fest before. I've only been to the one that's here in Portland. Yes, very patriarchal to be a submissive male. Yeah. Well, their argument against that is if you are a female dominant and you have a male submissive, you are acting out the male gaze by being a female dominant because you're only doing that, or you're at least partly motivated by what the man thinks is pleasurable. So you're playing a role to please the man, or you're taking on the masculine male role, and that's still bad. And also a lot of male submissive fantasies are inherently misogynistic, and so those are bad. But then also if you're playing with a woman, you're still just like role-playing being a man by being dominant with her, and that's still perpetuating the patriarchy because you're causing a woman harm. It's just, these are the responses, folks. These are like, I've talked about this in videos before. This is what people do. This is what they say, and they have the same take every time, which is, I don't understand BDSM. Why would you ever want to hurt someone you love? BDSM is misogynistic, and, harming women is wrong, beating women up, essentially. When they really get down to it and they are not trying to be nice in public, the way that they will describe it is that BDSM is beating women. That's what they think it is. To forget the 99% of kinks that do not actually get boiled down to beating up a woman. Those don't count, but we could talk about that for a hot minute, I'm quite sure. Well, so for people who are new, I guess I will go ahead and give the usual spiel. I almost forgot to do that because I got sucked into talking about anti-kink rad femmes. So this is an 18 plus only live stream. If you are not at least 18, please do not be here. That is for your safety, my safety, everyone's safety, because mixing minors and adults and conversations about kink and sex and relationships, not a great idea. So 18 plus only. We have rules and an FAQ down below if you want links to answers to common questions like, how do I tell my partner I want to try BDSM? Where do I buy a flogger? what books do I recommend? That is all going to be linked down below. And in general, if you guys ask a question, I'm going to try to answer it. We don't normally get too many repetitive questions. And like, it used to be like, I implemented that system because for the first couple of years I was streaming, like basically like until the pandemic started, I would get the same 5 questions like all the time. And, you know, I don't necessarily want to spend every stream spending 20 minutes explaining like what books are my favorite, you know, whatever. So even if it's something that is in the FAQ, I'm a bit softer on the rule about like if it's in the FAQ, I'm probably not going to answer. I will still choose if I want to answer it or not, like with any question, but don't be discouraged if you want a more personalized response. That's maybe like, oh, well, what about this thing? Or, well, I'm married, so does that change anything? Like, let me know. I'm happy to talk about it. And basically, you guys ask questions, and then I come in and I answer them, and we have a little conversation with the chat because we have a really great little community here that also likes to contribute their expertise and thought, because I am not, as it turns out, an omnipotent, omnipresent kink god. I cannot do every kink from all different directions, and so I don't know what it's like to be a married 65-year-old man who wants to be submissive. But maybe somebody in the chat knows about that experience. They can speak to that more personally. I can normally give examples or talk about somebody that I know or give general advice, but obviously I can't speak to every experience, every different relationship type, because I haven't been in all of those, and I haven't been all those different types of people. So that's basically what y'all need to know. And then I go in the order of the chat. So if you ask a question early, I will get to it. At least much more likely that I will get to it. I try to give people a like 15 to 20 minute warning before the end of the stream to let people re-ask a question in case I missed it, because with YouTube, essentially the chat can end up getting so long that it actually, like, for some reason while I'm live will like cut me off where I'm at in the past chat and like boot me ahead. And when that happens, I will end up like losing like maybe like 10 or 20 minutes worth of questions. So just so you know about that. And then if you want to make sure I answer your question right away, the best way to do that is with a super chat, or you can also go to Streamlabs below. It'll show your question up on screen and then it'll read it out loud, which is a great point because actually I had not checked what my volume level was for that before I blow up my speakers and make everyone very upset. And that's basically what y'all need to know. And then just be respectful. I don't answer like super personal questions about like stuff that would normally be really personal to ask a streamer. Use your common sense, I guess. And then if I don't want to answer it, I won't answer it. And that is what it is. Oh, and really, really important. Oh, first of all, thank you so much for the super chat from Visual Scrapbook Media. Thank you. That's very nice. Anything we do with memberships, if you want to get one of those as well, that just enables us to add more emotes, and then you can use the emotes, which are very cute. And the only reason I have memberships is because the only way for me to add emotes to the stream is to have a membership program. I would make it free if I could, but it's 99 cents. So you could either get a single hard shell taco from Taco Bell in America. I don't know what they are in like Canada or wherever. I don't know. Do Taco Bells exist outside of America? I'm not sure. But that's the value proposition I have for you is one hard shell taco from Taco Bell or a month of membership where you get fun, cool emotes. You decide. That's basically what it's about. And we have a puppy cam. This is Bandit. If you haven't seen her before, she is the queen of sleepiness right now because we went on a long walk earlier today, and the fall weather here is so beautiful. I know that, and I'm hoping that. Oh, we got another question here. Have you ever done a video about corner time? I don't know. I think that like the heating is like making my throat really dry because I had this problem during stream last night too. So I have not done a video about corner time. I am confident that I have referenced it before in either a video about littles or punishments or maybe age play, some flavor of that. I don't really have any specific advice about doing corner time. I guess I'll give my opinion about corner time because I want to feel like you're getting your money's worth out of an answer here. So corner time, I guess if people didn't experience this is actually one of the punishments I had as a child. Not that I got like punished very often, but this is one of the ones that my parents would use, is essentially where you are made to go stand in a corner until a certain period of time is up. That can also involve some other kind of task layered onto it, like having to press a coin with your nose against the wall, basically to ensure that you are actually, staying in the corner. Although there is obviously more BDSM flavor to it. I'm not talking about like the actual like punishment method that parents will use with children, but in a adult BDSM context, it's kind of fun to like have a situation where somebody's put in a corner, and then as the dom or as the top, you tell them, okay, you're going to stay in the corner until I say that it's time to leave. And I'm going to make sure you stay in the corner or else. You just live like a really vague threat. And then you like don't leave the room necessarily, but just stand behind them, maybe just sit really quietly on a chair, and then just like let them feel your eyeballs like burning into the back of their skull. Because especially if they're not doing anything else, they're probably going to feel really tempted to be like, are they still there? I can't hear them. Like that's sort of the horror movie, like psychological play of it is going to be, oh, are they still there? Like, am I really alone? Are they still watching me? And it's going to be so tempting to turn around to be like, can I just like see them out of the corner of my eye? Like it's been forever. What's happening? And like just sort of having that temptation essentially to want to turn around, and hopefully you don't do that because you turn into a pillar of salt. That's a very specific biblical reference, but you would not turn into a pillar of salt, but maybe you would get some kind of punishment on top of that or something. You can play with it in both a punishment way for DS or in just like for the playing of a scene maybe, and having that be one element of it. Actually, I saw a picture on Twitter earlier today that was from a spankle that I follow on Twitter, that it was a one of those like Elle Woods Playboy Bunny, like classic Playboy Bunny Halloween costumes, with the like corset top and then the high-waisted panties and like the whole 9 yards, right? You get the idea of it. The point is that it's a bare bottom. You can see that it's red, right, from being spanked, and then it was in the corner. And I thought that was like a cute idea. I was like, oh, I had never thought about the spanking utility of a bunny Playboy costume before, but I could see that being part of the appeal. So the point is you can really layer it on and include it with other things. But I outside of that, I don't think there's anything else really I would specifically say about corner time, other than probably start with like less time than you think is reasonable, because actually being in the corner as an adult having to stand up is like really intense for a lot of people, especially if your partner has ADHD. Like I have to stand there in the corner of a white wall with no stimulus happening around me whatsoever, and I have to do that for 15 minutes. That's forever. Like think about how hard it is to like meditate for like 5 minutes for most people. Like start out at like 5, then maybe it'll go up to like 7, and then maybe like 10, and then if they're like, or if you know that they're really good with like staying focused, like if there's somebody who like meditates regularly and things like that, like you can have it be for longer periods of time. But other than that, I would just, okay, I got like a notification for, I've got so many phone calls. I don't know what is happening. I don't know. I had like somebody like text me like as a wrong number today. I don't know what's going on. I just gotta make sure my phone's silent. Okay. 5 minutes is long. 60 puts hubby into insane mode. I mean, yeah, if you want to do a mental breakdown torture type scene, corner time is a fun way to do that, because it's, well, you're just standing in a corner. What's so hard about it? You can even get into playing with the humiliation of it, of like, although this would probably make it more easily able to be endured because you're interacting with them, and that's like something to feed off of. But like, you've only been there for 10 minutes. Is it really that hard? Like, you can amp up the ridicule and the humiliation with this to make it a more involved experience if you want to. Do not hit the Playboy bunny tail. Yeah, to make sure you got your aim correct on that. Oh, having a specific step or a chair to sit on for timeout is also sounds good. Yeah, you can also get like the dunce cap going. You can go real old school with it if you want to. You can get like, oh, you have like a spanking stool in the corner. You can have a chair. You could have it be what are the like I don't know. I haven't looked for this, so I don't know if this is a thing. But the idea that came to my head, again, for more the humiliation, or if you're an ABDL, maybe like a training potty, like making them sit on the training potty with a dunce cap on. I think that could be fun too. There's always lots of ways to add other levels of emotional sadomasochism onto a scene, is the point. That's really what I'm trying to say. There's always room for more, so start out mild and then build your way up, right? Like, it's like Hot Ones, okay? You're not going for the spiciest wing right at the start. Start with the mild one. Work your way up. Find the spice level that works for you. Don't just leap off the deep end. Like, there's no bonus points for this. You're not getting an A+ because you like push it as far as possible immediately. And I'm curious where this tendency comes from, if this is just like a social thing, if it's particular people and how they were raised. But I really feel like there's an undercurrent in so much of BDSM that's super competitive and is all about like, well, but I did this and I did this for longer. I did this harder than anyone else. Like, it's not even focused on like how to I want people to be competitive about having the most fun. I want people to be competitive about like having the best scene where like you felt super connected and it was amazing and it met all your needs, and like that is like, be competitive about like having the best experience for yourself. But no, we don't do that. We don't do that. Instead, we get really competitive about like, you got your subs bottom black and blue. Well, I got my subs thighs and butt black and blue. Like, it's like, dude, does that really actually do anything for you? Like, this like voyeurism and exhibitionism is a thing. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it should be about the dynamic between you and your partners, not like you and some image you've built up of what a really ideal BDSM relationship looks like. Oh yeah, Halloween, lots of costume ideas. We have a spanking stool with a rough mat on top for corner time. Ooh, that's a good idea. You could do like a jute rug. You could put an abacus on there. You could glue some Legos. Again, always room to make things more intense. You think, oh, I'm in the corner for corner time. It's not so bad. Well, that's until you've got hot sauce on your tongue and you're sitting on a pile of Legos. And then suddenly you're rethinking your life choices. I'm going for spicy first thing. I am hungry. Well, hey, if you know your limits, I'm not going to stop you. But my general advice for people is to pace themselves. At the very least, if you're going to jump off the deep end, make sure you got some milk and some ice cream around, all right? Make sure you got time for that good aftercare, I guess would be the analog with kink, is having the aftercare time, having time to decompress, and accepting the risk that you can do things where it can go really bad. It can mess up your relationship. It can make it so you don't want to ever play with that again because the first time you did it was so bad. And some people are going to be okay accepting that because they know they're only really going to be satisfied with like going out to like level 15 out of 20 and not level 1. But that's that's your own thing. I hate competition or competitive subs. I sent my goddess $500 back to back this week. I'm a better fin sub than you. It gives low self-esteem. Oh yeah, especially with like fin dom fin sub stuff. Like, there's a lot of self-esteem with stuff around fin sub in particular, which I wonder why that's the case. But yeah, it's like, shouldn't think about this for a moment. Let's just break this down, subs and slaves of the world. Let's think about it. You're bragging about how you're a better sub than other people because you were able to send your partner $500 back to back. Did that actually make your partner happier? Is your action right now in this moment, complaining of being competitive, is that acting in alignment with your power exchange relationship? Is that bringing honor and prestige to your dom? Is that really serving your dominant, or is that serving yourself? Because 9 times out of 10, being really bragging and talking about this and that scene you did and how intense it was and all of that, that's serving yourself. That's not serving your dominant partner. There's room for bragging. Okay, don't get me wrong. There's time to like build your partner up and like say how awesome they are. Like if they want to do pickup play and like somebody's asking about them or you're doing some kind of sharing. There's times, okay? But just having that be the default way of interacting, I feel like is super unhealthy, in my opinion. The Lego IKEA corner time stool collaboration. That would go so hard. That would be... There's a narrow market for that, but I think it would do numbers. Yes, I think the fantasy of it all plays like a significant role in the competitiveness. I think especially with FinSub stuff, that's probably true. I'm kind of confused about it with like masochism in general, because most of it is like a very individual experience. Whereas with money... Because psychologically, like, money is kind of about having more than others and being able to give up more than others. But, like, what the fuck does bruising have to do with that? What's the connection? Not sure. Some people really care about it, though. Glad you could make it. Thanks for being here, Deanston. Yes, they are happy because they are getting more money, and that's why they do FinDom in the first place. Well, okay, sure. There's definitely FinDoms where they're just, like, counting their money, and that's all they care about is, like, oh, well, I got more money. But I'm, like, in, like, a lifestyle, like, in a relationship, I don't think, and Doms in the chat, let me know, I don't think that most Doms find it endearing for their partner to publicly brag to the point of like almost kind of putting down other subs or slaves, if not outright, then by implication, to be like, well, actually, I was able to do more of this for my Dom than you are. Actually, look at this really intense thing that I did that was so much better than the thing that you did. Like most Doms are going to be embarrassed by that, and they're not actually going to like take kindly to it because it actually like speaks badly of them. I think that their partner is acting that way. But I know, obviously, if we're talking about more of a pro-dom environment where it's just about like a business transaction, that's going to be different. But I'm obviously thinking about this from more of a lifestyle perspective, if nothing else. Only got to do it once, but one of the best punishments I ever gave out was to build an IKEA desk without instructions. Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I like it. I'm a big instructions person. I like in the friend group and in the polycule, I'm the person that's the instruction human. Everyone else is too ADHD to manage instructions. Like, no, I can figure it out. 20 minutes later. So does it say if it should be facing this direction or not? And I'm like, I saved the instructions. Let's check. Like, that's me. But for most people, that would, in fact, be a terrible, terrible fate. Mm-hmm. Never heard of a FinDom that dated their sub. They usually date someone else. It definitely happens. I mean, like, it depends on where you look. Obviously, overall, female dominants who are engaging in any kind of pay or financial domination relationship, the vast majority of those people, like 90 to 95+%, are going to be people that are, at least part of the time, pro-doms. But I definitely know pro-doms who also have personal relationships with subs outside of pro work that also do like some financial play. And I also know people that are just strictly lifestyle doms who do not do any of it professionally that also engage in financial domination. So certainly online, the most of it that you're going to see is going to be related to pro-dom work, and they're going to have other partners that are not submissive to them, but that's not everyone who does BDSM, obviously. Absolutely not. None of my subs should ever be bragging or being disrespectful of others. I think that's a good one. I literally get it wrong even with instructions. That's also part of the problem with IKEA furniture is you're on step 47 out of 58 and you're like, I think I've done something terribly wrong. I have 3 extra pegs I haven't used yet that aren't in the rest of the instructions. I categorically refuse to buy new IKEA furniture. If for any reason I'm like, I need this one thing from IKEA, which basically never happens, I will wait until I find it secondhand, already built somewhere else. I refuse to ever build or pay for new IKEA furniture ever again. To ADHD, I've got a second video playing on my phone. I'm chatting on multiple Discord servers, and I'm monitoring chat. I may have a problem. Well, you know what? That's dopamine. It all is what it is. No judgment here. In my experience, it's been subs doing that to dunk on other subs. Yep. Nah, that's all. It's just like, Why can't we all just be friends? Why can't we get along? Like, I think competitiveness is probably to a certain degree part of human nature, and also something that's like socially advantageous for a lot of people, so they're going to do it naturally, but that doesn't mean that it's like cohesive to building a community. Having a kink for being competitive is a whole different thing. Anyways, but where is the instructions in English? That's, fair point. Although from my memory, IKEA instructions don't actually have any written component at all. They're just pictures. Though it's been a while since I've built anything from IKEA, so maybe they've changed that at some point. I'd be very careful about bringing the relationship to anything more personal, like a significant other relationship. Yeah, that's definitely fair enough. I think, especially, and also if you're doing pro dom work at all, and then you're transitioning a pro relationship to a personal one, that's a whole other can of worms. Actually, funnily enough, I like the 3 pro doms I know of who ever talk about their personal relationships. 2 of them have multiple female submissives as lifestyle partners because they're all queer women. So in their personal life, they only date women and they only play with women. But professionally, their clients are 9 times out of 10 men. But, such is the interesting world of pro doms, which also is funny to me that part of the argument against pro doms are still bad because they're just acting upon the male gaze. The vast majority of women I know that do pro work are queer women who personally prefer or are actually just lesbians. They're not even bisexual, they're just lesbians, and in their personal life they only date or have sex with women. So I'm not sure why that is, but that is, at least, maybe that's just the pro doms I know. Maybe that says more about me than it says about pro doms. But yeah, that's my experience with it, at least. No language, just pictures. Mm-hmm. All right, let's look at some more questions, because I got off on a tear on that one. So let's back it up here. Scanning for questions. Yeah, she was doing puppy biscuits. Yeah, she's got to make it soft. My favorite thing that she does is when she gently bites the blanket and then she licks it. That's gonna do. I've never met a dog who licks the blankets before she lays down, but she does. She loves doing that. It's her favorite hobby. My sister had to leave today for 2 weeks to do hurricane relief, so this is great timing for me. Thanks for being a great distraction. Well, I hope that everything goes well for your partner, and I'm sure everything will go well, and I'm happy to be a distraction. I know certainly with especially having Milton and it was Helene, right? It's not Helen, it was Helene. I don't know why my brain's confused about that, but that was really, I don't even know how to describe it. To have those 2 things happen back to back and have so many areas be affected is just so tragic. And I grew up in that part of the country, and just so to think about that happening and having to evacuate and then maybe not having a home to come back to at all is really upsetting. And honestly, I feel kind of guilty about enjoying the really nice fall weather we've been having here in the Pacific Northwest and the aurora and everything, because I know that in South Carolina, everyone that I know of there is dealing with hurricane relief, and I hope that everyone who's there is okay. And as far as I know, Milton did not end up being as bad as it could have been. So that's good news, at least, but it really is a silver lining. Thank you, Twixie. Twixie gifted 5 memberships. So now 5 random people are members of the stream and now have access to the cool emotes. Thank you so much. Oh, Nathan became a member. Yay. I don't know what happens if you're a mod and a member. I don't know if that actually changes anything. And I guess I will see. So thank you so much. That's fantastic. Oh, cool. Thank you for letting me know about Lexi. I look forward to seeing her later. I feel bad that I made her laugh so hard on stream last night that I contributed to her hurting her ribs again. But all I'm going to say is washy time. Scrubby time and washy time. I was trying to explain to one of my partners what I did on stream, and I told them about that, and they're like, I don't get it, but I'm glad that you had fun. It was definitely a you had to be there moment. Looking for questions in the chat. Oh, there's Lexi. Welcome. You become a modber. Oh, there we go. We got modbers. I really wish there was I feel like that should be a default thing. I feel like everyone who's a mod should also by default become a YouTube member. And I don't know if that's a thing on Twitch or other streaming websites. I just want to be able to like right click and like make someone a member manually for free, but that's not a thing that exists. YouTube wants to get the money. YouTube doesn't want to give away money for free. They hate that. They hate giving away money. So for them, only gay BDSM is cool, I guess. Wonder what their argument there is. Well, like two gay men? Yeah, two women they don't like because that's women beating each other up is wrong because one of them is being the man. Like it's, I don't even know if gender essentialism is the word for that, but it's problematic, whatever it is. With gay men, honestly, I think they'd probably still say the same thing and they'd still be like, well, one of them is still like the whole reason why they're submissive is because they're acting in like a feminine way and like they're playing out the feminine role. And so that's still sexist. Like they'd find a way to think that it's wrong. Don't underestimate the power of a kink critical rad femme. Okay. They are experienced pretzel knot twisters, all right? They will figure out a way to make their argument still stick no matter the genders involved, the orientations, the number of people, the underlying motivation, whether or not sex is happening. They don't care. They will find a reason to hate it, which is honestly why I think you should not take, I don't want to say, you should never take anyone with ideas like that seriously, because I think we should be aware of what other people are saying and doing, and I think it's good to be aware of the undercurrent of things that are happening in even feminist movements or other groups and identities that you may be a part of, because you don't want to let those things roost without them being called out and without being aware of them. But it's not something where I think actual serious mainstream feminists are like spending a lot of time staying up late at night tossing and turning about like thinking about gay men doing BDSM and how that's wrong. Like I think it's just a lot of people that are sort of like new to feminism and are really upset with the state of the world, and so they just go to like, oh well, clearly this thing that's very visually upsetting has to be wrong, so that's going to be the punching bag of the day, of the week, of the month, forever, because it's an easy thing to attack, because like mainstream media is not going to stick up for kinky people. Obviously they don't really have an invested stake in that. But yeah, I don't know. I would love to know what draws them to that specific subset of like, how do you get hating BDSM to be your like pet project? Like what happens in your life to where you're like, I'm going to make finding every submissive and telling them that what they're doing is wrong my like life's mission. That's going to be the thing that's going to solve the patriarchy. Because my thing is, okay, so we're going to solve the patriarchy and make all this better by going after submissive women and telling them that their kink is wrong. And we're not going to talk to any of the dominant men that are doing this, or we think that dominant men are like fairly represented by Fresh and Fit, which like what happened to Fresh and Fit? What happened to them? Where'd they go? Didn't they get kicked off of YouTube? Wait. Oh no, wait, they're on there. Wait, they're live right now. Speak of the devil. Well, they're always live. That's how they make their money. Oh my God, Fresh and Fit. Myron's intense first day working on the southwest border. Oh yeah, he's a border guy too. Yeah, he was a border. I'm gonna keep my thoughts about that to myself. Wait, who's this guy that he's got with him? Did he replace coconuts? What happened to? There's Fresh and Fit, but I'm only seeing Fit. What happened to Fresh? Where's Fresh? Oh no, he's still there. 3 days ago, I was worried about him. I was like, what happened? What happened to Fresh? He was the funny one. Now they only have the angry one left. I was concerned. No, he's fine. Okay, everyone has their Fresh and Fit update now. Oh, yeah. He was on the Jubilee video. I don't know how old that one was, but I know the one that you're talking about because I just listened to a podcast where they were talking about Jubilee videos and how Jubilee loves doing... I'm shocked they haven't done one with kinky people yet, because I feel like that has to be like... Because they love doing stuff with feminists. They love doing stuff with feminists that's like a top moneymaker for them. And I feel like they're so tapped out on all of the obvious ones that the next niche has to be like 10 feminists versus like one like radical like sex crazed bimbo or something. Like it has to be something where we make one college student who likes anal like debate 20 angry rad femmes from the UK. That's gonna be the next thing, mark my words. Yes, Matt Bernstein. I was like Mark. His name wasn't distinct enough in my brain. I could picture the thumbnail and him, but like, if you don't have a name like Fresh and Fit, I'm not gonna remember you. I'm not gonna remember your channel until I've watched your channel like 10 times. But his videos are really good. I like Matt Bernstein. If you like kind of longer form YouTube content that's in that vein of analysis and talking about, I don't know, what's going on with the queer internet, it's a good one. So that's a recommendation for you if you want a little funny podcast. I don't know if they actually have like a podcast like on podcasting apps, but it's on YouTube. Sounds like something someone would do in a totally accurate battle simulator, maybe. Yeah, it was big/little Joel. Medium Joel, actually. I thought Jubilee did a kink episode, or am I thinking about another lineup channel? Yes, they haven't done it in that format. They've done videos with kinky people before, like talking about kink, but they haven't done the specific middle ground format with kink, which is the one I'm talking about, where it's like, can these two people that are totally opposite see eye to eye? And if they've done one, let me know, because I want to react to it. I want to know what's going on there. But my inclination is that it's probably not going to be a fun time. But I need like, I don't know, maybe like, who would they match us up against? I feel like it either would be rad femmes or pastors. I'm going to take pride in the only thing I know about Fresh and Fit is what other YouTubers complaining about them have told me. That is a good thing to be proud of, and that's more or less true for me. I don't ever, except for like when I've done Manosphere videos, I have looked at their content for Manosphere videos before, because like you got to scrub through a lot of stuff to be able to find a clip to share. But other than that, like it's all the things I hear about, like Fresh and Fit, Shane Dawson, James Charles, David Dobrik. I don't think I've ever watched any of their videos on my own, ever. Jubilee is just doing BuzzFeed listicle tier slot, but more cynically and with intention to rage bait. Yep. They know what they're doing, and it gets some views. Although less so these days. I've really noticed with The Cut and Jubilee, they are not doing the numbers they used to do. I could see them going the religious route if it was, if they want to do that format. Yeah, but they also love talking about feminism. So I feel like it would either be something where they could do something with like a far right content creator. I guess they could also be a religious person, kind of mix those together, and or some kind of like far radical feminist. But I also don't think there's any like far radical feminists that they could invite to come on to cast that would really bring them big numbers. Like I can't think of anyone who's like, I'm a radical feminist and also I have like 20 million people that like follow my Twitter account. Like maybe there is, and I'm just like on the wrong part of the internet for that, but you'd have to start, I don't know, doing necromancy and like raising feminist thinkers from the dead for that to be able to happen. Being submissive male for almost the past 20 years, I've submitted to male and female doms. Has been my most satisfying 20 years of my life. Well, that is great, Jay. I think that submission is fantastic. And also that you've had the variety of getting to do it multiple different ways. Question. My sub and I have discussed going to go... Okay, wait. Let me read. Question. My sub and I have discussed to go to the play after party next time we go to an event. Neither of us have ever played in public. Would the DMs know the difference between a bad scene and nerves? So this will depend on the kind of DM training that the location does. When I did my DM training, they were very clear to tell us that essentially the philosophy was that people are allowed to have bad scenes. People are allowed to have bad scenes that look uncomfortable or awkward or fiddly or nerve-wracking. Like, all those things are totally fine. Like, people are allowed to have bad scenes. The only time you are supposed to intervene directly is when a safe word is called, like the house safe word, or some kind of clear medical event is happening, right? Like somebody's having a heart attack, somebody fainted. Then you step over and you do something, but you are supposed to be very hands-off. You can, go over and maybe gently talk to someone if you are concerned about something, going into an unsafe danger territory, or if someone also like breaking a rule, obviously that would require intervention. Like, I've had people at that same dungeon where I did DM training at, I've had people go up, and I was playing with a new person, and I think from the angle that we were at relative to the DM, they were concerned that we were doing like sneaky breath play or something, and it was like, no, this is fine, like we're not actually doing that at all. And they were like, oh, okay, well, just if you're gonna do that, like, just make sure you're doing it this way, not that way, or whatever. Like, or even as a DM, they can kind of get kind of close, and like if they're trying to catch the dom's eye, and like maybe give them some kind of signal to catch their attention, to be like, hey, we're getting close to a line here, I'm just checking in, does anyone need anything? Just like non-verbally with their eyes. But for at least my experience with DMs, for the most part, they're not supposed to step in and do anything. I think for just like nervousness, you're more likely to have like a want to be helpful but actually unhelpful person step in and try to assist you, especially verbally, be like, hey, I'm going to give you some advice. Hey, I'm going to talk to you about what you're doing. That's, I think, more likely than the, what? Not enough memory to open this page? I've never seen that before. I apparently have too many tabs open on my computer. All right, give me a second. What the heck? What could I have that would be taking up too much room? Or is there something wrong with my internet? Am I actually still connected? Okay, no, we're good. That was weird. So yes, hopefully they're not really supposed to intervene. Oh shoot, I lost where I was in the chat. Okay. Oh no, I lost where I was in the chat. Oh dear. Okay, well, I definitely missed some questions. I think I'm going to leave that one where I basically said what I needed to say on that. Is there anything else I want to add to that about DMs not understanding stuff? I mean, you can also, like, you can talk to DMs. Maybe I'll say that. You can talk to DMs before you do a scene. Like, especially if there's just, like, one head DM, or they're very visible, there's, like, one or two around. You can tell the person, hey, we're going to do the scene just so you know, like, we're kind of new, and like they appreciate knowing that because they know to watch the scene a little bit more closely, and then they know that like, oh, like they are both wanting to do this, but maybe they're just like figuring it out, and that's fine. And that I think can be really helpful, because then they're not going to be guessing about like, are they really in distress? Are they just nervous? You've told them, oh, we're long-term partners. We've been together for this long. We're going to be doing this thing, but we've never played in public before. We're not really sure how it's going to go. Just FYI. And they'll probably appreciate that, and that'll really help. Are you a million tab kind of person that leaves them open for weeks? No, not at all. That's why it was surprising. I am very, if I can't see what all the names of the tabs are, I lose my mind. Like, I will leave tabs open if I'm in the middle of like writing a video and I have a bunch of sources open. But other than that, I don't really leave tabs open. That's not my bag at all. That's what bookmarks are for. That's my opinion. Bookmarks, yes. Tabs, no. But with YouTube, I like when I'm running YouTube like this, I do have a couple of tabs open, so. Only dealt with power loss, but only a few hours west is hellish. Yeah, that's one of the things too, is it just, if you're a couple miles one way or the other, it can go from being basically normal to very uncomfortable. What's your thoughts on Chastity? Don't think we've seen you do a video regarding it and devices. So I am working on a video about Locktober, so I'm going to be talking about that more because 'tis the season for Locktober. We're almost like halfway through it, if you can believe it. But my personal thoughts on Chastity is I think it's... Oh, Bendita's on the move. I think that it is a very underutilized kink, and I think it's more niche than it could be, like, especially for female submissives. Like, I know a number of male subs that are very into Chastity. It's like much more popular, I think, in the gay men's community overall on the whole. But I don't know, is that a pun? I don't know if that's a pun. We're just gonna whatever. But I think a lot of people, it's kind of like it's bondage, but it's also kind of medically, but then it's also kind of involving sex. Like, there's so many different intersections that I think to be attracted to it in the first place, it's very specific set of flavors you all have to be into at the same time. And also it's higher maintenance because you got to find a device that's very like size finicky. There's a lot that goes into wanting to do it. And also I think, you know, for a lot of people, though certainly not everyone, or even the majority of people, like, BDSM is a sex thing. And the idea of, like, somebody being totally locked up and not being able to have sex at all, outside of maybe, like, giving oral or, like, maybe using a toy, you know, with certain designs, there's a reluctance to, I think, engage in that in any kind of long-term way. But I think it could be really interesting to play with for a lot of different relationship styles. I think it goes really well with a lot of like transformation based role play. I think it goes really well with like dollification. I think it goes really well with even like pet play. I think that's like a really untapped area for Chastity is pet play, because, you know, if you're a pony or a bull or a livestock animal or a dog or a cat even, you know, like a lot of animals get fixed. And I feel like that could, obviously, you know, a fixed animal doesn't lose their genitalia completely, at least in most cases, I assume. But it's not something that people really play with pet play at all. I think probably because of the devices that are used for them are not, like, obviously the same. But I think that there is a way to play with that overlaps with that concept. But I think it's interesting, and I think it's like any other kink, really. The psychological motivations behind it, when you go down the list, it's, you know, once you've read about like what motivates people to do like 5 different kinks, you've really learned what motivates different people for every kink at some different level. Like, people like the level of control, people like the level of devotion it requires, they like the self-discipline, they like, it can even be like a self-improvement thing, they like that it maybe helps them focus better, they like that their genitals are being tortured. Like, there is the motivations, maybe except for the last one, are universal but simply apply to different things and come out of different things for different people. $28 tabs open on this window alone. Total of 12 windows open. Lowest number of tabs on a particular window is 8. That's wild. I get uncomfortable if I have 3 windows open. My max is like 2, because I'll have like a shopping window open if I'm like looking for furniture or something, and I'll leave that open. And then I'll have like I have like a fun window and a work window. If it's more than that, it makes me uncomfortable. Okay, this is disingenuous phrasing. Do you still not consider pleasure doms to be actual doms and just service tops? And that's not, let's clarify something here. I think that a lot of people who say that what they're doing is being a pleasure dom do not know the difference between doms and tops because they weren't taught what it was. That doesn't mean that, like, anyone who says that they're a pleasure dom is, like, just a service top. Legitimately, I just think a lot of people don't know what a dom or a top is and where the line is between the two, which, trust me, based on my experience on dating apps, meeting people at munches, meeting people at parties, like, that causes a lot of confusion. And a lot of people, like, don't actually want to be dominant in a power exchange way. They want to be able to, like, do rough sex to somebody, which is not the same thing at all whatsoever. I do think that a lot of people, especially for people that are learning about this from like TikTok, for example, are probably still like, they just don't have enough experience with BDSM to know like what a top versus a dom is. But it's not because of the activities they're doing. Like real doms wouldn't do that. It's not based on the activities they do. It's just that they don't they're doing it, but they're not actually doing anything involving power exchange at all. Like they're just topping, and that's fine. Topping, doming, whatever is totally fine. All of it across the board is great. But it's just when you are calling yourself a dom, but then you don't actually want a submissive and you don't actually want power exchange, and like you're looking for something different, like it's a mislabeling, and that causes confusion. And that to me is like what I don't like about it. Apparently a lot of people I have a lot of tabs on my phone because I can organize them, and I have like I basically use grouped tabs as bookmarks for my mobile phone. But then everything that's not staying as a bookmark essentially gets closed when I'm done browsing online. But that's a whole other conversation. But I think, you know, I to be clear, I don't dislike pleasure doms. It's not like I'm not trying to gatekeep anything. I think for me, it's just like I'm linguistically concerned about people like blurring the line between dom and top and then erasing topping. Like maybe this is me being paranoid, but I really feel like everything is kind of collapsing into being called a dom when that's not actually representative of how the majority of people do BDSM. Like the majority of people that are doing kink are topping and bottoming. There's not very many like as a proportion. Like it's like 80% of people are topping. Like when I go to a play party and I'm playing with someone, like they're not my dom, they're not dominating me, unless maybe we're doing a service thing, and like that's a little bit different. But most times it's topping. But like some people are doms who also top, and that's a whole other conversation. But I think people I don't know why people have become uncomfortable saying that what they're doing is topping, and I think maybe people got confused because there's a minority of people that are like, don't say that you're a top because that's appropriating like gay culture, which is not true at all. But that would require knowledge of history to make that assessment, and like people don't know anything about even like regular like mainstream history, let alone the history of the kink community. So why would anything be different about that? I think a lot of people don't realize that they're service tops because it's not a thing that people talk about. It's not the fault of the people that are using the label. I think like I don't know, this does kind of intersect with like Locktober in a weird way, which is you get people that are like making up terms out of nowhere because they don't know that other labels already exist because they're not in the community that they're trying to like make labels for. And this also happens with the LGBT plus community too. It's like, oh, we already have words for that, but now you're just reinventing a new word because you're not involved enough in the community to know that other words already exist that are describing the thing that you're already doing. So reinventing the wheel. So anyways, I hope that makes sense. I don't want to dwell on that one too much. Yeah, there's also people that are happy to do both the power exchange and also the weird sex stuff. But I guess from my example, like most pleasure doms, at least the time I was making that video a couple years ago, it was very centered on like TikToks and then like people talking about like I just really like it when my partner has lots of orgasms would be what it boils down to, which is like that's not. What is it about heterosexuality that makes people think that giving... Because also this is like pretty much 99% of the time like a straight man thing. So that's the part of this assessment is also fueled by that too. What is it about heterosexuality that makes you think that because you care about your partner experiencing pleasure that what you're doing is like a deviant kink behavior? Like I find that to be very fascinating because like in any other form of relationship or like most other orientations, like that would just be like a regular level of concern for pleasure. But I don't know, there's different ways of engaging with that. Oh, and then ruined orgasms too. That's, I don't know how much is a part of Locktober, but that's definitely in the wheelhouse. And POT. I don't know what is. Gonna ask a dangerous question. What does that stand for? Because I don't know if I know what that stands for. It might be obvious to me once you spell it out, but like just in the abstract with the acronym, I don't know what that is. Because the orgasm gap in heterosexuality is real. Okay, well, just because there's an orgasm, like, I don't want to get into this. I don't want to make this be a whole argument. Like, I made a video about it for a reason. But it's, you know, I think a lot of, like, I don't know, like, it's like women don't say that they're dominant women because, like, they want to be able to do what they want in the bedroom, you know, like, in the sense that's like, oh, well, I want to be able, I'm a dominant woman because I like being able to initiate sex. Like, that's maybe not a perfect analogy. And certainly there are, to be clear, like, there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum of experiences. There are, like, dominants who focus on sexuality and orgasm, and you can do orgasm torture, and you can do orgasm denial, and you can control your partner's orgasm, do all kinds of things with orgasms that go into a power exchange territory if that's what you negotiate for. But it's a spectrum. And, like, most women do not call themselves dominant women or, like, call themselves doms or dominatrixes because they want to be able to initiate sex. But, like, for some reason, there's a subset of men who think because I care about my partner experiencing pleasure and orgasms and I like giving them orgasms, that means I'm a dom. Like, that's where the disconnect is for me. Yeah. Post-orgasm torment. Oh, okay. I didn't know that had a name for that specific variation on orgasm torture. Interesting. Okay. Extreme overstimulation. Okay. I could see how that would work. So I know a lot of people are very sensitive post-orgasm, so that makes sense. Yeah, I'm sure you're not trying to argue. It's hard for me to tell, like, with the tone of just text that, like, if somebody's trying to be argumentative or if it's just, like, clarifying questions. So I appreciate you clarifying that, but it's an interesting one, and, like, I don't know, like, I obviously have my own opinion about this in my head, and other people have different ideas. It's very hard for me to be 100% confident that I'm accurately communicating what my feeling is about pleasure dominance when I'm sort of ad hoc, like, answering questions about it and not maybe sitting back and, like, writing out what my thoughts are. So I guess I'll just, for people in the audience that are maybe concerned about this, I think that if you're labeling yourself as a pleasure dom, that is a very valid way to be dominant. I think that being a dominant who focuses on sexual pleasure, orgasm torture, orgasm control, orgasm training, whatever, all that's totally valid. That's definitely a way to include dominance. That can be the only way that you're dominant. Dominance can be something you do once a month or every day, the whole day. Like, it's a wide spectrum of experiences. At the same time, I think that because of the dynamics of heterosexual sex and the way that we are socialized, and also lack of education in general around just sex and also kink, people that are not in the community, that don't know how certain kinks are done or what the differences are between topping and doming, and between, you know, I guess, how would I phrase this exactly? Who don't know the difference between, like, being a top and a dom as one thing, but then also they don't know the terms of the community we use for certain activities or certain ways of engaging with kink. They end up inventing terms that are probably already covered under one umbrella, partly because maybe being a dom has more prestige to it, or because they don't, like, there's role playing. Like, there's, and maybe, I don't know if everyone sees a difference here. Maybe this is me as, like, a lifestyle person. I see a difference between being a dominant partner in a relationship, like having a power exchange relationship and being a dominant in that capacity, and role playing through being the one to do the activities during a scene. Like, there's the like being somebody who's in power in a scene and role playing that out doesn't necessarily make you a dom. Like, if you're doing, like, teacher student role play, the teacher isn't necessarily dominant, even though they are the one who's performing the actions of the scene and is the one who's in control of what's happening during the scene, if that makes sense. Oh, I see. Okay, the vibrator staying strapped on, I guess. Although, I guess, like, I imagine, I don't know if this is true for people that have penises, but with vulvas, like, at a certain point you tend to go pretty numb. I'm not sure if that's, I don't know how universal it is, or it's Typically polishing. It's a very interesting way of phrasing that. But I think I get what you're saying. That's listen. Even I can learn new things. Even I will learn new things from time to time. So thank you for educating me about that. But yeah, anyways, that's sort of my my concern is mostly with like compressing dominance and topping into like one thing, and then like losing the value of having separate labels, and then like sort of reinforcing the fact that it's like weird and unusual and novel to like care about a female partner experiencing pleasure to the point that like, oh, it means we're doing something kinky. Penises do not go numb like that. Well, we have a very enthusiastic no that it does not happen. That sounds very unfortunate. I'm very sorry. But, you know, maybe for some people it's fun to play with, obviously. It must be for at least some. For penis havers, you can use a wand plus a hummingbird attachment. Interesting. A hummingbird attachment. I can picture what I think that looks like. I'm not an attachment girly. I don't know. I don't mess with penises like that. So I have to take the chat's word on that one. Some penises have a please do not touch ow 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 phase after orgasm. Yeah, I'm familiar with that, but there is a point, like if there's a point beyond that after which it gets numb, that I'm not confident in. Obviously, I am aware of the post orgasm no touchy, at least for some people, but if there's a point afterwards where it gets numb, I'm not familiar with it. Oh, I see. Okay, so there is that. So bondage and then ruin stuff and then getting immediately locked up. Okay, so there's a whole sequence here that connects back into chastity. The more you know. The ignoring and the begging is a fun dynamic. That's a fun one. There is no point of numbness, at least not for me. Well, I'm very sorry, penis owners. That sounds very unfortunate. Unless you like that kind of masochism, I guess, in which case it's a gift from God that you were designed that way. But, you know, I'm happy that's not me. I'm happy that's not something I experience. Though it's, I've really learned, by investigating Locktober and chastity play, I have learned so much about penises. I didn't know that there was so much left to learn about penises, and then I keep finding out new stuff. I've learned like probably 5 new penis facts in the last 2 days. So thanks for helping me out with that one, y'all. Are you familiar with publications like Fansadocs? And if so, what do you think of it? Is it too much? I have no idea what that is. If that's a doxing website, that sounds really bad. If it's anything to do with porn or BDSM, I don't know anything about it. Listen, okay, here's what you need to know about my relationship to anything involving adult content. Until like a year or two ago, I did not know that there was a Pornhub theme song. I did not know that it existed, and I missed every single reference to it in every piece of media that I watched. I thought it was just like a musical sting that people used for flair. I didn't know that it was. I didn't know it was a reference to anything, and I did not know what the outside of the kink.com building headquarters looked like after it got closed down and was like a meme for a while. So I don't know anything about anything. That's my opinion. I don't know nothing about any of that. That's not my thing. It's not something I've looked into. So I don't know. But, you know, as far as assuming this is what it is and this is the wheelhouse it's in, when it comes to adult content and things going like too far, there's as long as everything's being done in an ethical way, everyone's an adult, they're fully consenting to it, they're being paid, they're not being coerced into anything. You know, if an adult performer wants to do a certain thing and they're consenting to it and, you know, they're treated well on set and all that stuff, like, I think all that's totally fine. And I think it's far be it for me to judge where the line is on, like, well, this kind of kink is okay, but this isn't, because, like, what counts as extreme to different people is very different. I think there are certainly things where, you know, I wouldn't necessarily want it to be like super widespread, I guess. Like there's super extreme kinks that are like, you could only ever do that once and then never again. And then I think at that point in time, probably what's better to do is like either some kind of hypno thing, or doing some kind of like, you know, paying a pro dom for like a custom clip where they like tell you about the activity happening to you. There's a few things where I'm like, man, maybe not that one, which I don't want to even say what they are on YouTube. I think we can all probably guess the ones that I'm talking about. But for most of the other stuff, if it's something that's recoverable and non-permanent, for the most part don't really care too much, as long as everyone involved is being, you know, treated fairly as a worker, being paid, and is consenting an adult, and all that good stuff. I know, she's like super conked out, super sleepy. She looks like a little chicken wing. I love my little chicken wing girl. She's so sweet. My thing with Chastity is the constant reminder of submission with the weight of it. Yeah, the like weightiness of it. Yeah, especially if it's like a heavier one, I could see that being the case. My biggest appeal to Chastity is, I cut it off. I thought it said not having access. I'll have to look for that later. I don't want to miss where I'm at in the chat personally. With Sunbron, I think having the behind the scenes content is really good. You know, the people just hanging out, laughing and so on. Yeah, I think having the check-ins, the aftercare, the upfront, like, hey, I'm excited about what we're gonna do. This is gonna be fun. I think that is really good, and I'm hoping that we're seeing more of that as a default thing. Good question from Deanston. Any advice for performance anxiety? I'm a switch and I have no problem bottoming for play at an event, but I get in my head when thinking about or working up the nerve to do any topping. I think that's really common because, you know, when you're a top or dom, you're in control of the scene and you're the one performing the actions. And if something goes wrong, you know, you're the one who's going to have to answer for it. If something, you know, if your partner is having a weird reaction or tries to run away screaming naked out of the building, like, you're the one that people are going to be like, hey, what the fuck happened? And so I get there being a lot more nerves around topping, especially people like judging you and like, you know, are they going to think that I'm a newbie? Is it going to be super obvious that I'm like not used to topping in public? Like, there's a lot that goes into that. So I think one, that's a very understandable experience. It is not uncommon to feel that kind of anxiety. I think what I would probably do, this is sort of my methodical take on reducing performance anxiety, is like, one, being really familiar with the venue. So just playing there multiple times before if you can, and I'm assuming that, you know, you're used to at least bottoming at these events, so you know the locations. That's like one really big thing. Like, if you're nervous about topping, don't do it in an unfamiliar place, because it's probably going to make it worse, especially if you want to go back again in the future. If it's a one-time event where like you don't care about knowing anyone there, like that can be good for different reasons. Like, you're going on like a one-day like kink camping event, you're only going to be there for one day, you just want to do this one scene and then like go and leave, and you don't give a shit about like whatever anyone thinks about that. That's one thing, but most people are not going to have that experience. So go to a place where you feel familiar. Play with someone that you're familiar with. So like maybe not doing pickup play, doing it with a partner that you are comfortable playing in private with as a top, building up that rapport, building up that communication, because I think a lot of the nervousness around performance anxiety with topping is like something going wrong during a scene, or at least that can be the case for a lot of people. And so knowing that you know your partner's body really well, you know their limits, you know what their likes are, their dislikes, you know how they communicate, that can give you a lot more confidence in your partner, which can help you have more confidence in the scene in general. 3, plan to do stuff that you already know how to do, that you're confident in. So not just the person, but the specific activity, whether that be, you know, impact play, rope, whatever. Stick to your wheelhouse of where you're already comfortable. Maybe go back like a step or two in terms of intensity the first time that you play, just so you're not overdoing it. So just stay in that comfort zone is really what I'm getting at. Stay with where your confidence level is already at the strongest. This is not the time to be bringing out new toys, new play partners, new environments, because all that's probably going to ramp up the anxiety. Also, if you can talk to the DMs, that's a really great thing to do too. Just check in with them, like have them be familiar faces. Don't have them be the strangers that are looming over your scene from afar that you're not comfortable with. Also, select the event that you're going to be doing this at, like very carefully. You're probably going to be more intimidated in a room of like edge players versus a newbie night. Like I would probably look for a newbie night or look for like a more low-key type of party. Like a lot of bigger venues that have events regularly, they'll have some kind of like lower key event where instead of being like the edge players night, it's like a spanko party. Like it's not gonna, kind of the level of what's gonna happen there. It's not gonna get too wild, and you're not gonna maybe feel as competitive with other people. You're not gonna feel those like, ooh, these people that have like 10 years of experience and 20 years of, they're not gonna be like watching me like a hawk to see if I'm doing anything wrong. So that is something I'd also think about very carefully too, is the event you're going to in particular, that specific play party. And this is where actually one of my tips for new DOMs that I gave in a recent video, this is where one of them really comes into play, which is thinking about the aesthetic and what you are wearing. And I mostly talked about in that video, I think, from getting into the headspace of being a dominant partner, especially if you switch or just topping in general. Because if you are just showing up in your regular clothes, it's harder to get into that headspace and be like, all right, now I'm going to be topping. So finding things that you feel confident in, finding clothing that you feel like complements your style, speaks to who you are as a dominant, is, I think, a really overlooked thing for people. And this is sort of more of a vanilla psychology thing, but I think also applies for kink too. Like, don't underestimate the power of like a mask, for example, or a hood or something. Like you can go to an event and also be in like role play gear. You can also, be in something that's maybe a little bit more obscuring, something that you can like have a hood up or something, depending on the rules of the venue. Not all venues like allow you to have your like face obscured, but it's certainly something that can help because it gives you that layer of anonymity or separation from your everyday self. If you're like wearing a mask or you have a hood on or you're in a like role play outfit that's very specific, that can certainly help as well. But that's probably what I would go through. And then also too, like when you're right now, like I would think about what your goal is. Oh, there's a follow-up thing. Thanks for the advice. I've been going to this event regularly for over a year now, so I'm pretty familiar with most people who go. I think that's really good too. Is there anyone? I guess I don't know. This could make it worse or it could make it better. You could seek out feedback from people to be like, hey, like I'm new, like how'd it go? And they can if you're confident that they're going to be able to be like, oh, it was great, like you did a great job, you look totally natural, whatever. That can certainly help for the future. But what I was about to say is I think it's also important to calibrate what your goals are. Like the goal is not necessarily to have a full-on scene. It's to gain confidence, to override the performance anxiety. So I think instead of trying to do a really big production and like having this be like a full-on scene that maybe you're used to seeing at this event or doing from the opposite side of the slash, we're just trying to find confidence. So maybe that means planning for a really short scene, like 10 to 30 minutes, somewhere in there, just to get the feel of it. Also, I would consider maybe playing at the very end of the night or at the very beginning of the night before people show up. So at the end of the night can be good because most people are like winding down, they're in aftercare, they're not really paying attention to the other scenes going on around them, and the venue is probably a little bit more sparse. So you're not going to have as many eyeballs on you, and the people that are there, they're probably not going to be paying attention to you because they're thinking about how hungry they are. They're thinking about going home. They're getting their toy bag packed up. They're doing aftercare. They're in their own floaty bliss world. They're not going to be paying attention to you. So end of the night can be really good. And then secondarily to that, if you're not a night owl and you're like, I'm done at 11, I can't stay for that long, it's just going there like first thing and doing something when people are still more in that like mingling stage of the party where, not all parties like this. Like I've been to a lot of venues where like it takes like 45 minutes before like the party really gets going. But other venues and events I've been to, it's like doors open, scenes are happening. So it depends. But if you have the option to get there like right as soon as it opens and just get into a scene immediately, and kind of like get it out of the way basically, because I think also being at the party for a long time can build up anticipation and make that anxiety worse. Whereas if you're just getting it out of the way immediately, like it's just done and then you can enjoy the rest of your night and just enjoy watching other people's scenes. But if you're doing it when there's less people around, that's also a good idea. So that's more or less what my advice would be, is just staying in that comfort zone, building up your confidence level. Think about things that you can wear or do that can either make you feel more anonymous and feel more comfortable, and calibrate your expectations, and then sort of manage what time you're going to be playing. But honestly, at the end of the day, the big thing that will help with performance anxiety and setting expectations that are realistic is just going to be doing the thing that you are afraid of, which is scary. Like, the part about overcoming anxiety is, in this context, that's really hard, is you have to be willing to be brave enough to overcome the anxiety hurdle to get to the other side and realize that everything is like fine and okay. And that's the work, is actually like going over that hurdle, getting through it, and then that will naturally lessen the performance anxiety, because the thing that you're worried about happening doesn't happen. Everything goes okay. You have a great scene. It goes super well. You want to do it again, and then just doing it over and over and over again, getting that confidence through repetition. That is what will lessen the performance anxiety. And 9 times out of 10, the worst anxiety you will have is like the first 1 to 3 times you're doing it. And then after that, you're going to realize, it's not really that big of a deal. No one really cares what I'm doing. And these people know me. I'm not being silently judged. It's all good. And also, if people are, silently judging, that's their own business. People can have different opinions about kinks, and that's fine. But the random people's opinions, don't have to affect you, which is easier said than done, obviously. But that is another factor to consider as well. But great question. Thank you so much. Performance anxiety is a really common thing for DOMs to go through. Maybe it's worth it. You know what? I'll add that to my list, because I want to think about this a little bit more. And I think overcoming performance anxiety is probably a thing that a lot of new DOMs have to do with. So let's see, performance anxiety for DOMs. I'm going to ask some people. I'm going to ask some DOMs how they... Actually, you know what? I'll do that now. Any DOMs in the chat, if you have experienced performance anxiety, what have you done to mitigate that? That's not been covered by what I've said already. Or if there's anything that I've said that particularly helped you that you've also done, I'd love to know that too. And then... there was another... Okay, cool. I'm going to write that down. You know what they say, imagine the audience is in their underwear. This might be even easier in a dungeon. Well, I mean, if you're imagining that in a dungeon, you're putting clothes on them at that point. You're probably making them more clothed by imagining them in their underwear. Also, depending on how the dungeon is laid out, finding a piece of furniture that's more in the back, a little bit more out of the way, a little bit more cloistered off, that can also be beneficial too, because then physically you're more separated. It's sort of like having the podium. It's a lot of people are more nervous giving a speech when they're just standing with a mic versus being behind a podium. Even though they don't have papers and they're not actually getting any extra benefit from the podium, just having that wall of separation can be helpful for people. You can facilitate a similar thing with just turning, being in a spanking horse, but then facing in a way to where your back is turned to the rest of the people in the dungeon, so you're not actually seeing how many people are watching you, if anyone. I think the performance anxiety is more of a concern that who I'll be playing with has trouble with what I'm doing than anyone watching, as scenes aren't usually meant for enjoyment of viewers. But yes, thanks for answering, and thanks everyone in chat. Yeah, I think that's if who you'll be playing with has trouble with, if that's part of the performance anxiety, which is a very fair point. I think that's just about building up confidence, playing in more of a private setting, and then making sure you've got very clear communication tools, both verbally and non-verbally, and then making sure it's a person you can trust to be able to communicate with you, doing check-ins regularly, using the green, yellow, red system. There's only so many safety things that you can build in. Eventually you got to trust the car, right? You got to, you can read all the manuals, you can have your seatbelt, you can make sure the headlights are properly adjusted, you can check your mirrors and your rear view and have a backup camera, but eventually you've got all the tools you can have for safety that are currently available, and you just have to trust that the car is going to get you to the destination. Sounds weird to call submissives cars in this, or bottoms at least. In this scenario, it's hard to think about them as being cars, but that's, I guess, what I've chosen with this particular analogy. For me, managing anxiety comes down to remembering the things won't be that bad. Ending a scene early because someone got a cramp, it happens, and so on. Yeah, I think that too. Like, just accepting that it's part of reality, that everyone experiences having to end a scene. And it doesn't say anything, like, I think it's reasonable to be worried about, like, accidentally overstepping a boundary or not hearing a safe word. Like, that's if you're not worried about that, that's probably a bad sign. But past that, beyond that, if somebody gets a cramp, isn't in the mood, their period suddenly starts, they're like, oh, I'm in too much pain, I can't do this, we gotta stop. Like, those things happen. Everyone has had to stop a scene. If they've been playing for long enough, they've had to stop a scene, or at least, like, even if not stop it immediately, like, cut it short, or not do something that they planned on, or at the very least, it didn't turn out the way that they expected, and it's part of just doing BDSM, right? Things you can say about your car and your sub. Fill this up. Yeah, that is true. That is true. Okay, I think that I thoroughly answered that one, so I will move on to the next question, but thank you, Deanston. I know you don't normally get to join, so I want to make sure I answered that very thoroughly, because it's a good one. Every rad femme I've interacted with turned out to not be a feminist in actuality. Shocker. Shocker, I tell you, shocker. We get so many of those. Submissive men are just wrong messages on our channel. Yep, submissive men can't win, submissive women can't win. We're just all equally bad, and it sucks. It just really sucks. Being able to laugh during sex is, like, I think that, I'm not going to say that's a secret to happiness, but I think that if you're in a place in a relationship where you feel secure enough to be able to laugh at yourself during sex, or, like, admit that something is funny, that's a really good sign. You don't have to if that's not your style, but I think if you're in, mostly from the perspective of, like, there's, like, something mildly goes wrong, and then it's like record scratch, kills the mood, everyone's unhappy, somebody leaves awkwardly afterwards, and you never talk again. Like, that's a worst case scenario. And then there's, like, something happens, and you're like, oh, that was weird, LOL, and then you just, like, move on. Then you laugh at it a little bit, and you move on. And then it's not a big thing, it's not a big deal, because part of being a sex haver is that part of not being a virgin is that things will happen during intercourse that will make you laugh, both intentionally and unintentionally. I suspect with Aaron, there's a portion of the sex that may be intentionally funny, based on the things that he says in chat. Also, best thing is that submissives can give you feedback. True. We are capable of speaking if you don't gag us. That is correct. You aren't alone in making a scene. Also, plan for lots of feedback for your first scenes, like saying lots of green praise hints. Yes, that's praise kink. Great. Love it. Or worshiping stuff, if you want to go in sort of the more top or dom focused direction of that. That's a really good one to add on to, is like having somebody say, like, when something feels really good, you're gonna say thank you, sir. And if you don't like it, which I want you to be honest about, you're gonna say no thank you, sir. Like, there is a way to implement making sure you had feedback happening, and then asking for that check-in. And, like, there are subs who are like, feedback ruins the mood, having to check in a lot ruins the mood, and I'm a little skeptical of that, because I think a lot of that comes from a culture that tells us that having to talk during sex about anything is, like, terrible and ruins the mood. I think that's something that we could probably learn how to do and have it not be life-ruining. But there are people who are more reluctant to communicate, or that go super spacey and can't talk, or people that just go nonverbal really quickly. Like, there's factors that contribute to that not always being easy for some people, but that would indicate they're probably not a great first-time partner, like a partner for a newer person to topping, at least. Yeah, feedback is great. The only serious feminism is intersectional feminism. We are certainly on the same page about that. All right, let's get to some more questions. Oh, yes, I was doing the stream on Thursday that we talked about dirty restrooms. It's a riveting conversation. Their channel did get demonetized, but I think it might have come back. Oh my god, Fresh and Fit are the two malnourished dudes, right? Oh my god. I would say that, I get them mixed up. I think Fit, for the amount of working out that he does, the dude needs to check his macros. I don't think he's getting enough protein in. He does not have the muscle mass I'd expect for a man that brags about being in the gym as much as he does. So I think for that, yes. I'm not sure about Fit. I don't know what Fit's deal is. I don't know if he goes to the gym. I don't know what his nutritional system is like. The two malnourished dudes, Jesus. Yeah. Ooh, Jackson asks, any tips for someone who wants to start pet play? Sure. So it depends on if you're starting with a partner or not. So my advice will vary a little bit depending on if you want to do this solo. So let me know if I'm totally off base. But I am going to start, I think, from just talking about doing it solo. And then if it's with a partner, we can make some modifications. So I think that starting out doing pet play, the big thing is overcoming what I would call the awkwardness barrier / this isn't appropriate adult behavior barrier. For some people, it's very instantly natural for them to get into like a more pet way of doing things, and like doing it in private in their home is easy because they're at home alone. But a lot of people have very deep walls built up around shame and guilt, and like this is like what a proper adult is supposed to act like. And you know, even when they're home alone, that they still keep something that's very regimented in the way that they act, because that's just like how they were raised, is what they believe you have to do as an adult, and they find it very difficult to like relax into that headspace. So the first thing is like, if you have that barrier where like, oh, it's awkward and it's weird and it's wrong for me to be doing this, is to like almost sort of like what we were talking about with overcoming performance anxiety. It's about overcoming the built up fear that you have, which is essentially to do the thing that you're afraid of doing, because you know that like this isn't the Truman Show, which for once I finally remembered the name of that movie again without struggling, so go me. I couldn't remember the code to my fucking mailbox earlier, but I can't remember the Truman Show now. But you know, no one's watching you secretly on a camera. You're totally home alone. It's okay to like let out your animal side a little bit and like start exploring that. Maybe it might help to like watch it. I really recommend, actually, that's a good one, watching like a TV. It could be, honestly, it could be a bunch of things. It could be like a Netflix movie about like the animal you want to connect to, if it's like like about horses or puppies or kittens, whatever you feel connected to. Netflix movie or TV show about it. Planet Earth, if you're going in a more general direction. You can watch like live streams and like visual ASMR recordings of like puppies playing or kittens playing that don't even have any talking, don't even have narration. It's just about watching the animals play to give you a sense of what you can do, both in the moment as you're actively doing it, and then sort of to set the scene, and also to have like, maybe it's the noise of like kittens mewling, or it's like, you know, dogs barking or something that can kind of help you access that headspace and help you feel like you're in that environment that you want to do with roleplay. So that's sort of the very, very basic level of like, okay, I want to do pet play, but I don't even really know where to start. How do I even get to start doing that? Is just being willing to sort of break down those barriers. And then as far as like beginner activities for getting into pet play, like what do you actually do during pet play? That very much depends on what kind of animal you want to be. The majority of animals and pet roleplay, the almost non-universal basic starter activity is like collar and a leash. Obviously with like horses, it's going to be like halter and a lead, but some variation on that's going to work for the vast majority of animals. And obviously if you don't have a partner around, you can't like walk yourself on a leash, but like nothing's stopping you from being a kitten on a leash and like playing with it like a toy and chewing at it and, you know, batting at it, and, or if you're a puppy, like barking at it, wrestling with it, you know, playing with it like a chew toy, dragging it around and getting up to mischief with it. So you can still play around with that even if you don't have a partner, but that's probably like the number one, like kind of universal basic thing. Also for getting confidence with, like, if you want to make vocalizations, like I really recommend practicing in the car when you're driving alone, you know, practicing in the shower, you know, watching those videos, watching and listening to recordings of the animal that you want to role play as, and just start out very quiet, almost like a whisper to yourself, and then like slowly get more and more loud as you get more confidence doing it, and then just like try to like experiment a little bit. Treat it sort of like a vocal exercise, like an acting exercise, where you're just trying to see what feels the most natural, what feels like the most that you're drawn to, maybe. Like if you're not even really sure, like, oh, I don't even really know what I want to be. I'm not sure. Am I like a big husky? Am I like a little toy dog? Am I a fox? Like, just experiment and see if anything speaks to you in particular. I remember when the Truman Show seemed completely implausible, and then looks at social media, maybe not so much. Yeah, now people are doing it willingly and they know it's happening. Now we just got family vloggers who vlog their whole life. Now I got that to contend with. Yeah, so any tips for someone that wants to start pet play? Also, if you can find a community online that's really supportive, that's another big thing as well. So there's lots of Discord groups for pet play, lots of groups on FetLife, lots of information on FetLife about pet play. You know, obviously I kind of came up in the Instagram, Tumblr days of pet play. Communities are on there, like still around, but a lot of the content creators in that space are no longer primarily on those websites anymore. So they're going to be on other social media, again, mostly FetLife, really big on Discord. Twitter to a certain extent, especially if you like more like role play stuff. Also doing like online role play can be a valid way too of starting to explore pet play and seeing what that space is like. But I think, you know, interacting with other pet players and seeing what they're doing, how they talk about stuff, can give you ideas of what to do for yourself. And then also make it more normalized. Like if you're in like a Twitter role play group that has like 30 people in it and they're all different pet players, and you're going to see their interactions, you're going to see what they're doing, you get to see like what they talk about in their Twitter feeds or whatever. You're going to get a sense of like why people are drawn to this, what activities they're doing, what they like about it, and that can help inform you with what you want to do. Just had the idea that raccoons would be great brat inspiration for pet play with the whole stealing thing they like to do. Yes, raccoons, very bratty. People always think cats, but foxes can be bratty, raccoons can be bratty. You know, a lot of animals can be very bratty. Don't underestimate them. The raccoons, I don't think, get enough love. I've known that before, especially in real life. I've met people that do like pet play and they dress up as being a raccoon, but online it does not really get a whole lot of attention. So I'm going to read this, but I'm going to have a caveat about it because I think this is important to mention, because I specifically didn't recommend TikTok for pet play for a reason. So for dog players, I'd also suggest going to a dog park for a while too, to help get into the mindset. I think I'd probably not go to the dog park alone without a dog if you don't have one, because I feel like that might come across as creepy to people, but I don't know. I've never tried to go to a dog park alone, but it depends on how it's set up, I guess, and how busy it is. Like maybe if it's a really spread out dog park, people wouldn't notice if you're alone. Because also there's dog parks that are like big, like huge open fields, and like, you know, people also go there to like fly kites and whatever. So there's mixed groups of people. And then there's like purpose built like smaller dog parks where like everyone who's there has a dog. So it depends on what one you're going to. I think going there to like watch and see like what dogs are doing and like how they interact and how they're playing is certainly good. I would not ever, and I'm not saying that you were saying this, but it just reminded me that I definitely mentioned this, is despite what you may see from certain TikTokers or on OnlyFans or what have you, I do not recommend going to a dog park, busy or not, as a human being, a biological human being, and getting on hands and knees and like running around chasing after balls. I don't care if you're fully clothed. I don't care if you're not trying to be sexy. I don't care if it's not a sex thing for you. It's unsanitary. If there's any other dogs around, you're putting yourself at real risk of being attacked, and other dogs are not going to understand your body language because you're not really a dog. You are a human being. You cannot communicate with other dogs. You are putting yourself in harm's way, and most importantly of all, everyone has a fucking camera and a video recorder on them at all times. Anything you do if you're in public, can and maybe will be recorded for somebody else's 15 minutes of TikTok fame where they're like, oh my God, look at this freaky weird person I saw in public doing this freaky weird thing. You do not want to be the weird freak of the media cycle for a week, like the pro dom who walked a puppy, like a puppy player on a leash in a grocery store that one time, or the girl that like had an OnlyFans and then promoted it by like taking videos of her going to dog parks. But like, you know, I've seen people that like will talk about like actually walking on hands and knees in public on a leash with their partner around downtown. And it's like, oh, well, it's fine because like we're not naked and we're not doing anything sexual. So like, you know, who cares? People do weird things in public all the time. And like, I guess to a certain extent that's true. But my problem with that is like, one, people may not be expecting to like be filmed or have that information be leaked. And I think we need to warn people that like, if you're doing weird shit in public, not only could random people you don't know have problems with it, but it could get back to your employer, it could get back to your family. Like at that point, you should essentially treat it like you're like engaging in making adult content, like in whether or not you want people to know that you're doing that. Because if you're doing something significantly weird in public, somebody's going to take a picture of it and film it, and it may or may not go viral. So be aware of that. And like, even if it's like, just there's no reason to do it. Like the cost benefit of that is like you're going to maybe make some people uncomfortable. You're going to misrepresent to people what most pet play is like. You may or may not have your photo leaked to vanilla people in your life. Like just don't go there. There's no reason to go there. But that's like, I don't think that Robin was necessarily trying to say that that was happening. But I don't know why in the last couple of years, like a lot of pet play stuff involves things happening like in very public places, like down to like two puppy girls like fighting with each other on the sidewalk in public, like outside of a restaurant, like, or like eating from a bowl on the floor in like a busy outdoor patio. Like just, you can do, like, is there really like, what is the extra benefit from doing this in public? Like that's what my brain gets stuck on, because okay, if you just like eating out of a bowl at your partner's feet, what's stopping you from doing that in your apartment? Like probably nothing. The thing that has to make it different at that point has to be the audience that you're compelling to watch this thing. Like there's a difference between like, oh, I'm out with my partner and like we just, you know, we're just living regular life and then people have a problem with that. Or we're in a space with this kind of like adult display of, intimacy is going to be part of what happens there, like at Folsom or something like that. Like, okay, that's going to happen. But if you stop and think about it, the only additional benefit you get from doing that kind of thing in public and not in like, you know, on a camping trip, at an Airbnb, in your own backyard, in a friend's backyard, in your apartment by yourself, like the only additional benefit is the exposure that you get from other people being forced to watch you, including employees that don't have any like choice in the matter, like that are compelled by their job to like interact with you, and they don't have the option to like not look at you, turn away, ignore you, because like they have to go like collect a check, they have to like ask you if you want a refill on your soda, like they have to interact with you, so you're like making these people interact with you non-consensually, and I think that's a problem. I've seen videos of people harassing a furry who's just hanging out at a park. And there's also a difference. There's just like being in public with like gear on that's like not lingerie. And then there's like actively engaging in a scene. I think actively engaging in a scene is a complete no-go. I think if you're just in like a fursuit or you've got a pair of ears on or a collar or whatever, like you're not doing anything, you're just existing in public. Like that's like, you know, wearing unusual clothing or unusual garments in public is not a crime, at least not most of the time. Like if you're wearing a see-through mesh like bodysuit, like that's probably going to be an issue because you technically have exposed genitals. But outside of that, those things are not a problem, at least not to me in my mind. But I think you have to be cautious about where that line is and just, you know, think about why you want to do that in public to begin with in the first place. it's got to be breaking the social taboo about it. At least that's the only thing I can think of right off. But still, that's pushing boundaries of others that have no choice in it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It is the public humiliation fantasy aspect. Well, exactly. That's when I say like what is the motivation there? Like that's rhetorical. Like the motivation is obviously like exposing, like maybe indifferently, but ultimately non-consenting parties to your kink because it's like, ooh, these people are watching me, and like you're sort of objectifying everyone around you and compelling them to participate in your kink, which I don't think is cool in that space. Like it's one thing to do it at like an area or at an event that like is explicitly about like sexuality or about like adult things happening. Like at Folsom, obviously, like doing stuff in public is like part of the whole reason why people go. But that doesn't mean that it's okay to like go to the nice Italian restaurant in town and like, you know, reenact Lady and the Tramp on the floor of the restaurant. Just don't, if you are getting close to something that would be in a TikTok prank, don't do it. That's my advice. I think the benefit would be the social humiliation. For those, that's the benefit too. Some don't want the level of humiliation. Yeah. I think, I don't know what it is about humiliation that just makes people like, I don't know, maybe people think about this more concretely than I'm giving them credit for. But at least in my assessment, it seems that a lot of people that are very drawn to public humiliation in particular, they seem to not care as much about what other people think. Like they're just sort of like, oh, I'm doing this, and like they don't really think about how other people like are going to be affected by what they're experiencing or witnessing, and it just doesn't occur to them. But anyways, oh my gosh, okay. So 20-minute warning. Now is your opportunity to re-ask your question if I've not answered it yet. And I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can before we wrap up today. 20 minutes should be enough time, but wow, that just flew by, y'all. Oh my goodness. Thank you all so much. So many good questions and so many interesting thoughts about this. Is BDSM generally a very open and welcoming group? I know that furries are, and they are the odd ones out. A lot of them are queer. Would you say BDSM has a fairly high rate of queer people? Oh, absolutely. So, locally, it depends on the scene. Because the kink community is like very segmented. There's sort of the online community, which is this bigger umbrella, and then the local communities, there can be even multiple in the same city. And some of them are ran by like fuddy-duddy old white dudes who like think everyone who's like not the same as them is like weird, and they just exist and they continue to have power because they're the ones with money and time and just sheer inertia keeping them in their position. So there can be people in the community that are very judgmental, that can be racist, homophobic, etc. Like it happens, especially in certain parts of the country, that kind of thing is more common. But you know, overall, based on my anecdotal evidence, because we don't have like concrete data about this from like a scientific study, but anecdotally, in my experience, the BDSM community, there are some like non-professional, non-academic surveys about this. The BDSM community is like wildly disproportionately queer, disproportionately neurodivergent, disproportionately all of the things. like anything that you could think of, neurodivergence, queerness, gender identity, all of the stuff across the board. Something like kinky people are like 8 times more likely to be bisexual than like the general population. Certainly a lot, especially the gay men's community obviously is very prominent. There's a lot of LGBT people in the BDSM community, lots of trans people, lots of people all across the gender spectrum. And that's very open. Again, different communities, different spaces are going to be different about it. Some are less open than others, but on the whole, in my experience, in my personal opinion, you are going to see a lot of people. And in fact, I've brought new people to events before, and I've had them remark to me that it is the event itself is like way more diverse than like the city we were in. Because like I lived in Portland and Seattle, right? So those cities tend to be like very white, very liberal, but not necessarily the most diverse, right? When you're like going to the grocery store. But you'll see people of all different walks of life. And certainly I think the young people in the community and the people that are building the community up now and making new events and leading the charge with new education and writing things and all of that, there's a very concrete focus at every convention I go to, every dungeon I go to. And not all of them are fine, but the ones that are gaining steam and the ones that people like going to tend to be very focused on like sort of general diversity and inclusion and making efforts to include more people. Like how do we make this, like, you know, now we have a quiet room for decompressing for like neurodivergent people. We have liaisons that work with people with disabilities to make sure that they get accommodations at the event. We have, there was like a sensory room, but we have like things that are tools to like help people acclimate. And then also like certain like meetup groups, mixers, things like that are more like special interest oriented and or like identity oriented. So like I've seen munches just for like Asians and Pacific Islanders. I've seen munches for just people of color in general. I've seen munches just for like dominant women. I've seen munches just for gay men. I've seen like asexual people, polyamorous people, all the way down the list. I have not seen a meetup group yet for, what was the thing I was just thinking of? Mena. I haven't seen like a Mena, like a kinky Mena munch yet, but I don't live in a part of the country that has like a particularly like large Mena population, which is like Middle Eastern, North African. But I think if I went to like Michigan, I probably would find that. So, but yeah, this is my personal opinion. Obviously, everywhere is different. It's very segmented. Trans, gay, and neurodivergent. Well, I will have you know that I think there's many people in this chat right now that are right in the same vein as you, and you will find like-minded people in the community for sure. It might take a while to find that exact group of people, but they are around, and I know they exist because they're in this chat right now. Do you think LGBTQ people are more likely to participate in BDSM because the nature of our sexuality makes us more open? I'm not sure on the reason. I think I've heard it said before that being in one marginalized community and being divergent in one way makes you more likely to also be divergent in other ways. And I think that is true. I think when you have to I want to be careful about this because I don't want to make it seem that like heterosexuality is like life on default and heterosexual people like don't think about their relationships to like sex complexly, because that's not the case at all. Definitely people will, but I think when you can get away in heterosexuality with, like, because it is like social default kind of coasting, like you just can't. Not everyone's going to do that, but you can. But if you are somebody who is questioning your gender or questioning your sexual orientation at any point, you are by that very nature of questioning it because you are deviating from social default of being cis and being het. You have to have more introspection. You have to stop and think about like, what do I enjoy doing? Like what do I, think is most true to who I am? And that can end up being very different because you have to have that level of honesty and you have to like stop and think about it maybe much earlier than some people do. And I also think, especially with queer sexuality, because there's a sense of going off script, of not following the path that was laid out for you. There tends to be a lot more emphasis on experimentation and not following a set path of like, this is what sex has to look like, which I think lends itself well to experimentation. And, yeah, but outside of that, I'm not sure exactly what the reason is, if there is a reason for why like queer people are more likely to be kinky. But like still at the same, it's disproportionate, but the majority of people who do kink are still straight people. Like it's not like straight people are not a minority in the BDSM community. It's just that like there's a lot more people who are queer in the BDSM scene on the whole. Read the Pleasure Dom question. Do you have any resources on the history of the term topping in both the gay and the BDSM communities? Oh gosh, it might be... So this is my general history book, as you can see. Very noted. This is A Lover's Pinch, A Cultural History of Sadomasochism by Peter Tupper. I reference it all the time. It is still a good book. Would highly recommend it. So I don't think that this book talks about that. I think where I learned, it was either in this book or I took a class from, a couple of classes actually, from an older, like, let's I don't want to be specific, so like a gay figurehead in like the gay men's BDSM community, and they were talking about, like, because they were around when like the BDSM community, before it was even called BDSM, was like becoming something of a community, and their experience of it was that there was a lot of like cross-pollination between the pro-doms and the straight folks and the gay men and the queer women. All like at one point there was a lot of contention and separation, but eventually through the creation of like various like the keystone groups of the Jugendspiegel Society or the Society of Janus, like there were groups that came up that became, at least in some capacities, very intersectional. There are a lot of people like sharing ideas from each other and with each other. And if the term topping was ever like borrowed from the gay men's community, it was because gay men who did BDSM were already making a distinction between topping and bottoming, and other people just happened to pick that up. But even in the gay men's BDSM scene, there's a distinction between like topping for sex and topping in a BDSM sense. Like there's still a distinction there, even in that, because obviously it's not like you can want to top like drink sex and not necessarily be exclusively a top or ever a top in a BDSM sense. So it was something that it wasn't like one day in 1999 all the straights woke up and they decided to steal the term topping and misappropriate it and make it about a kink thing when really it's about gay men's sexuality. Like that's not the case at all. I have books that go back to like the mid 80s that reference topping and bottoming in a straight BDSM context. Like it is something that has been used in the kink community as a distinction between dominance and submission and topping and bottoming for a very, very long time. The difference exists for a reason, and either it is going to be because there was intentional cross-pollination between several different groups that all did BDSM, or it was just because sometimes people end up using the same words and mean very different things by it. Like, I find this weird, but out of nowhere, a lot of moms in like mommy Facebook groups refer to their children as littles. I do not ever remember that being a thing when I was a kid. I don't ever remember hearing that word being referred to actual biological children of adults like who birthed them until like 5 or 6 years ago. But I don't think they stole the term little from the BDSM community. And also, like, the BDSM community didn't steal the term little from like DID systems. Like it's just it's a common word to use like in that vein. So hopefully that helps answer your question. But yeah. Both of them have weird names. TESS, or the Jugendspiegel Society, or TES is how it's spelled, the Jugendspiegel Society, and then the Society of Janus, which is JANUS. I can't believe that we stole the word topping from the cake decorating community. So scandalous. That is true. Oh, I was fiddling with the pen and then I dropped it. Yeah, I have trans friends who said their autism diagnoses hindered them dealing with medical people. Oh, yeah, the intersections there also make things more complicated. Honestly, it's not going to have an effect on your day-to-day life. I wouldn't bother with the diagnosis. That's also, yeah, it can definitely make things like more complicated. Sometimes just knowing things is good. Yeah, I think now I'm like, oh no, did I? Because there's another one that has a very similar name. Yeah, Society of Janus. I was the one that is still, both of them are still around, and they have newsletters, and they host events, and they do lots of things, and they have a very fascinating history if you ever decide you want to read up on it at some point in time. But yes, it's funny, I have never in my life met a kinky gay person or queer person who has ever even thought twice about a straight person using the term topping and bottoming in a kink setting. Maybe I've missed it. I've never seen that conversation happen at a munch, in a discussion group, on a panel, on a FetLife. Like, listen, people love arguing on FetLife about everything. And I've never seen anyone have an argument on FetLife about, like, is it cultural appropriation for kinky people to say topping and bottoming? Like, that's never come up, which should tell you something. I think, honestly, what has happened is it's the same reason why people, like, simplify BDSM as being about, like, beating women, or that it's, like unusual to, like, care about, like, women's pleasure during sex. It's people have a very set idea and a very narrow worldview. And if you are a young person who has never interacted with kink before in your whole life, and you're just learning about queer identity, and you know that appropriation is a really big problem, and dominant culture is like, and also secondary thing here, like appropriation is usually something that dominant cultures do to cultures that they have colonized. This is a, or at least have some role in oppressing in some way. The BDSM community is not an oppressive force over the gay community. It's another marginalized group. So, like, that's that aspect of it too as well. It's like, can there be, like there's a whole other different angle there that doesn't universally, like, solve any issues, but this is another angle to think about it from. So you have these really young people that just don't really know much of anything about, the world of BDSM, and they think, oh, well, the heterosexuals, like, hate gay people, and they're always stealing stuff from our culture. Because, like, there is a problem with, like, for example, like, black ballroom, like, culture and language being, like, taken up by, like, white teenagers on social media. Like, there are problems that I think people falsely see as a corollary. It's they hear about topping and bottoming, and that happened to hear a kinky person also say topping and bottoming, and their gut instinct is that has to be cultural appropriation because of all the examples they have of something similar happening, even if it's not actually. Bandita has moved. This is correct. Speaking of stealing words, I got asked the other day if I wanted fettuccine on a burger. It took me a moment. First of all, what context involves having fettuccine on a burger? That sounds, how does that even happen? But yeah, fettuccine's my, I can say it on a live stream because I don't monetize these, but it's fetish. If you've ever been confused in a video when I've said the word fettuccine, I mean the word fetish, but fetish is like, you can't say that at all in a YouTube video. You will get demonetized. They're very angry about the word fetish. It's like it's like the big no-no word of kink YouTube. I can't say it at all. All right. See you later, Aaron. Okay. We're going to do a couple more questions here. See what I can get to. Oh, I just saw one. I'm so confused why anyone is upset about the terms topping and bottoming. Because people like being upset, and they think, well, it's not really that. I guess that's not charitable. Oh, thank you. We have another 5 gifted memberships from Twixie. Thank you. We are ending the stream on a high note. Thank you, Twixie. I appreciate that. Only positive vibes. Positive vibes only. Okay. I don't know if I can do that with questions, but I will try at least. All right. Dum-dum-dum-dum. Oh, okay. So I don't want to make. Okay, I said I was gonna be good vibes. We're gonna have some support, and then we're gonna have good vibes. So, don't mean to be an off top wet. I don't know what off top means. Wet blanket. But I just learned my mother is seriously ill in the hospital. It might not pull through. I could really use a virtual hug or some words of support right now. Morgan, I am very sorry. That sounds terrible to go through. I know that's going to be really, really tough. I am so sorry you're going through that. That sounds really hard. If you have any capacity to look up resources for grief, I would definitely recommend doing that. There can be resources at the hospital that can also help with that as well. And I'm very sorry to hear that you're going through that. It's when even just anticipating, like, potentially losing a family member, especially a parent or a close family member, is really rough. And I'm sorry. And thank you also, Josh, for the tree fund. But I hope everything goes well, Morgan. I try to talk about, like, personal stuff, like, too much in my live streams or in my videos and stuff. So I won't, like, get into, like, trying to share anything through a personal story. But I'm sorry to hear you going through that. All right. In the meantime, I will look for questions. Any advice for figuring out or exploring your kinks when there are no communities available in my area? Online is great. Solo play is a valid experience. I think that's definitely something that you can do on your own. You can practice doing kinks on your own. Definitely lots of opportunities for practicing stuff. Online communities are great. FetLife, Discord chats, things like that. Lots of virtual classes online, virtual conferences even now. And that would probably be the main way that I would do things. And most of the virtual stuff is going to be on FetLife. So that would be where I would recommend starting to look for things. What did you think about this year's Folsom? I went and it was not great in the morning. I did not go to Folsom this year. I did see the discourse about it, which I have a video coming out about soon. So I don't know what it was like this year. I didn't hear anything from people who went to Folsom that was like remarkably bad or different compared to other years. But at some point, if you feel like sharing what you saw at Folsom, I'd be very curious to know. Yes, subscribe. Yeah, it's a membership. Yeah. No, it's okay, Josh. I figured I know there's a delay. I didn't think that you were trying to override anything. It's the nature of live streaming. It's what happens. Weird question. Is there a correlation between pet players and furries? There is certainly overlap. I'm not sure if there's a correlation. I don't know if being a furry makes you more likely to be a pet player. I have only seen fursuiters at a BDSM event like twice, so I don't think that there's a huge overlap. I think there's certainly people I know that like furry porn who are in the BDSM community and who do pet play, but they're not necessarily like fursuiters and are like that involved in things. The heart flag was great. I love that. But I also don't know if the connection between pet play and furry stuff even comes from the same place. I don't know if it's like, oh, well, I'm a furry, so I like pet play because of this. Like, I don't know if they're necessarily connected or if they are for different things. Kink community is great, except for gatekeepers, fortunately, walking red flags. Yeah, I mean, there are always gatekeepers who are like, oh, well, you're too young. You can't do blah, blah, blah. Like, gatekeepers exist. But they are becoming fewer and fewer, I think. A phrase to try to live by, there are bad actors in every group. That is definitely true. All right, who will be the last question of the live stream? Who will be the last question of the live stream? Okay, let's do one of the more recent ones. Let's go back. Ooh, the vibes are really weird. 100% clicks. My dom, who has gone several times, said that it was way different from previous years. A bunch of vendors and acts didn't show. Oh, interesting. Oh, well, I don't know if maybe people were sick and that's why people didn't show up, but I mean, I'm glad I didn't fly out there to go to Folsom. Because between hotels and paying for somebody to watch my dog, it's an expensive trip to go on for just one day of an event. But that's very strange. I wonder how much kind of coming back from COVID changed stuff, but also even last year, if it was normal last year and then this year it was weird, who knows? This is a freebie. Could you feel your kidney stone moving? I think I can feel one moving on the way. If it's moving at all, it will be painful. If it is outside of your kidney, you will notice it. You will notice it happening. It will not be a question. I could not feel the actual movement happening, but the pain itself was shifting downward as it went through my down through the system to the exit, I guess. So I could tell when it was moving from my back to where it had wrapped around, and it was almost fully past. I definitely feel that happening, but I couldn't because it moves slowly enough to where it's not maybe if it was bigger, I would have felt something more precise, but I could tell because the location of the center of the pain changes. No question. Just want to say thanks. I've watched many of your videos and I'm attending my first rope class next week. Ooh, enjoy your class. You flew from Ohio? I'm so sorry. That's a trip to go to an event that ends up being disappointing. The people I know that are like local to Folsom, a lot of them don't even go to the actual like event. They don't go to the fair. There's so many events around Folsom and leading up to it for like even a week or two in advance that like one, you can make a bigger trip out of it. And then like there's great dungeons in the area. There's lots of parties, lots of get-togethers, mixers, karaoke nights, the whole gamut of things you can do leading up to Folsom itself if you can do a longer trip. But I know there's lots of parties outside of Folsom. Not to be like, you should have known better and done something different. But like if you ever decide you want to try it again, like there's other options to go to besides the fair. That might, but also if the vibes are off at Folsom itself, maybe like the events around it also have like bad vibes. That is a distinct possibility. All right, I think are we there? Kidney stones are the worst and the best thoughts to anybody who's dealing with them. Yes, kidney stones are not fun. Why do you think I have this giant water bottle that dictates my entire life? I had something like it before I had a kidney stone, and I started taking it way more seriously afterwards. Also limiting the amount of uncooked spinach I eat. That's the other big thing. All the dungeons are members only, and every party we found was 21 plus. I'm planning to next year. Oh, that's so. I know that I went to. Also, I was 21 plus, so that was probably part of it. I didn't have to worry about being between 18 and 21. But there was the dungeon I went to. I guess they might have had reciprocal membership with the dungeon I was a part of in Seattle. That's maybe why we could go to the event. But I have a distinct memory of going to a pre-party orientation and then going to the actual play party. So I'm not sure. Maybe I did get in because the dungeon I went to had a reciprocal membership with that particular location. Yeah, but that's a fair point. If you're not 21 plus, then that's going to be it's going to make it harder. Okay. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for this wonderful evening once again. I really appreciate you all being here and spending a little bit of your Friday night with me. Thank you for Twixie for giving out so many memberships. So generous. That was like a whole Taco Bell haul of worth of memberships for people. I don't know. Bandita. Oh no, she's super asleep. She's like her little. You can't see it with the angle, but she's like her tongue's out just like a little bit. She's in, like, not just like, she's not in, her foot just twitched. She's in REM sleep right now. She's you can see her little paw going a little bit. She's like she's not just like in standby mode. She's like asleep. All right. I'll see you all later. Thank you all so much for being here and spending a little bit of your Friday with me. Have a great weekend. Drink water. Stay safe. Get some rest. Be like Bandita if you need it. And I will talk to you all again soon.